This is Emily Ruth Henderson, and I'm the host of My Brain is a Wonderland, the podcast for neurodivergent women and the people who love them. In 2020, after a hellish pandemic, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism. Surprise! Now, I am passionate about reaching other women just like me who've been pushed aside, ignored, and misdiagnosed for far too long. Every week, I discuss my experience navigating my 30s with these two life-changing diagnoses. There'll be highs, there'll be lows, and everything in between when you join me for Season 4 of My Brain is a Wonderland. Hello everyone and welcome back. You're here with your host, Emily, and I am back in the booth, off of my couch from under the blanket, and doing a lot better. I wanted to start off the episode today by going over some fan mail that I got, just another one, and I also wanted to thank, specifically, I don't know your last names, but Melissa, who donated $100 to my GoFundMe for my dog. Thank you so much. I'm trying not to cry right now. Thank you so much. You don't even know what that means to me and to my dog Leon, and that will allow us to continue the treatment without feeling this crippling pressure of the finances. Thank you so much. Alexandra, you as well, who donated $5, the same. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that, and you did it anyway. I don't know who you are. You don't know me, but I feel like we probably do know each other if we're going on this journey together each week with my podcast. So thank you guys so much. And if anyone else feels compelled to donate, if you've been following, you've heard about the saga of the ads. I cannot add ads. Even though I qualify right now, I have to wait for them to offer them to me once I qualify, and I haven't been offered any. So if anyone would like to donate to my GoFundMe, I have it as a link in the show notes on Instagram, and I couldn't add it to TikTok because you're not allowed to put a link unless you're a business on there. So look for it in the show notes, and if you can't find it, just email me, mybrainisawonderlandpod@gmail.com. So the fan mail, it is just listed as California. I have a feeling the person's just from California, or maybe that's your name. I don't know. They say, Emily, I'm so excited Season 4 is on. Every week I look forward to your episodes. Regardless of how crappy my day is, you make me laugh and smile. When you announced that you'd reached 1,000 listens in just 2 weeks, I happy clapped a lot. Thank you so much. Navigating the ad features could be quite an ordeal, but I'm glad you have access to new revenue stream. Hopefully soon. P.S. When you're ready to keep your work lunch cold, consider using an insulated grocery bag or lunchbox with a hefty ice pack. Of course, this comes from a fan who was traumatized by childhood food poisoning experiences as a result of parents ignoring food safety practices. Thank you so much. How neurodivergent of you to mother me at the end and be so sweet in offering me advice. And, yeah, I do have ice packs, and that is something I've done in the past. Will I remember to do it now? Only time will tell. So thank you so much. And today we are starting a 2-episode mini-series just because there's too many points I need to go over. But I'm going to go over, I saw this thing on, I think, TikTok, and it was just a list of things that you might hear from people if you were an undiagnosed autistic kid. So there's 8 different statements, and we're going to do 4 today and 4 next week. So the first one is, wow, you're so rude. You know, I thought about this one, and I don't think anyone ever said to my face, you are rude, or, oh my God, that's so rude. I don't think, people, even kids said that to me. But you know what I could tell is that from their body language that something was off. That maybe if I was too direct or loud or monotone, coming across as demanding. Oh, you know what I was called? Bossy. That as I was talking that out in my head, and that's probably something that women and girls hear more often than boys and men, I was told that I was bossy. I wasn't rude, I was bossy. And it's because I was very comfortable making statements, asking people to do things, telling people to do things. Like if there was a group chat, we're put in a group, I always took lead, always took charge. This is what we're going to do, I would say. And I was probably a little bit loud, and because I was monotone and directive, that came across as quite bossy. Whereas I just kind of felt like, well, I know what we should be doing. No one else is taking charge. I'm not one of these people. When I sit back and no one is taking charge, I just take charge. It's awkward. Not for me. It's awkward to sit through the non-taking of charge. So I'm very much a person who's like, yep, I got it. I'll assign everybody. I'll delegate. I'll lead the pack. I'll present our findings. I still do this at work and everything. So no, but I just realized, I've never been told I'm rude, but always told growing up that I was bossy. Miss Bossy Boots is a common phrase in the UK. I don't know if that's used in the US, but always told that. And haven't been told that as an adult, that I'm bossy. But like I said, sometimes you catch, especially in the past, because I've adapted and masked a lot now, but especially in my 20s, you kind of catch people looking at you like, Or you get feedback in one of those awful reviews, when you have to be reviewed every 6 months or 12 months by your boss. And they're telling you everything you did right. That's how they always sugarcoat it, right? They're always just like, so here's all the good things you did, so that I can cushion the blow of how much you suck. And then they start telling you, so your tone, you're too this, you're too much, whatever. So, not rude, but yes, bossy. Here's the second statement you may have heard if you were an undiagnosed autistic kid. Just eat your food and stop being so picky. Oh my gosh. I never really got that from my mom. My mom was always great at catering to that. I think once she kind of got on the train of the parent needs to cater to the child. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of parents who are like, you either eat it or you go without. And I don't know if that actually serves to make the child more comfortable with food and actually start eating that food. Doesn't it just make them angrier, defensive, and more resistant to eating that food? That's how I always felt. So growing up, I really loved, pasta, rice, cereal, certain fruits that, like strawberries in the UK, were always slamming and delicious. Cherries, crisp green grapes. Love oranges. Oh my god, at Christmas time, which I'm sure maybe outside Europe it sounds funny to eat an orange around Christmas time, but they're kind of a Christmassy fruit that we would hang on the tree. And I was just a very picky child, but my mom would do a couple of things. One of the things she would do, so that it wasn't confrontational, because what she would do in the grocery store is be like, do you want to try this? Like a piece of fruit, like a lychee or something, right? And she'd just buy one lychee to try it. Buy one star fruit to try it. And star fruit is actually one of my favorite fruits, or carambola. And so she would buy one thing for me, and then we would try it, and I'd just have to be honest. She was just like, just be honest. If you never think you'll eat this again, tell me so I don't waste my money. And then I would just be honest. And sometimes what she would do is put that food in my lunchbox so it was non-confrontational. So that I would open my lunchbox. There wasn't anyone there watching me, like my mom being like, are you going to eat it? Are you going to eat it? I would just open my lunchbox, smell it, touch it, look at it, maybe try it. And then my mom would know if it was left in my lunchbox, half eaten or opened, peeled, and then no, then she knew, okay, not a go. We're not going to be getting lychees anymore or what have you. And so that was like a great way of kind of introducing me to foods. And then the other way is that she really just did cater to me. If I wanted plain rice, I could have plain rice. If I wanted, like when I would get a wobbly tooth, So I always had a thing growing up with pain. I used to scream and cry if my mom was removing a Band-Aid, and I would like cry until I fell asleep, and then she'd pull it off while I was asleep. I think that's an autistic thing, being afraid of pain and things I don't know what's going to happen. Another thing with that would be losing my teeth, right? So all these kids where they like tie a string around it, yank it out, pull it out. No, could never be me. Here's who I was. It starts to get wobbly. And then I start eating mushy food like an old patient, like an elderly hospital patient, until that tooth just falls out naturally one day. Like it's so loose, it just comes out. And so what my mom would do during those times is she would make me mashed potato and fish and parsley sauce, which in the UK, fish and parsley sauce is a very common dish for me growing up. We would get the bird's eye packets with the lump of cod in the sauce, and you'd boil it, and then open the packet and plop it out onto the mashed potato. And you just mash it all together, to be honest. And it'd be mashed potato, mashed cod, and a sauce. And then you just kind of eat it. Oh, God. You just kind of eat it like, very soft ice cream. It's very good for when you're having dental work done. But a lot of parents wouldn't do that, right? A lot of parents might say, no, like, deal with it. I'm not making you this weird meal because you're afraid of your tooth falling out or what have you. And so my mom always catered to that. I think when I was younger, maybe not so much. When I was very young, she was kind of like, for God's sake, just eat this. Please eat this. I remember one time specifically sitting, not at the dinner table, but the, with the little table in front of your seat in front of the TV. And it had, I think it was like spaghetti bolognese or something. And I mean, I was there. It felt like hours. It probably wasn't hours, but it felt like forever. My mom had already eaten, already finished, and was just like, eat it and you're not leaving until you finish it or you go without. And then I think she got a little softer as time went on and also felt like, what's the point? Like I'm saying, it doesn't help to be like, eat it or nothing. It's not like the next day I'm like, oh, thank you, I'll eat this thing I hate that's the most disgusting texture and flavor, but I'm so afraid to be hungry. I'd much rather be hungry. I mean, I'd much rather be hungry. I'm not going to die from missing one meal. So she just learned, I think, that this was an easier way to get along with me. She didn't know that I was autistic, and maybe, again, some parents would be like, well, you're pandering to them or whatever. Well, all kids have needs and desires and wants, right? And I think when you have a child, of course, you have to pick your battles. And I think if a child wants a certain food, if it's healthy and they enjoy it and they actually eat it, I mean, win. That's a win, And I didn't go without veggies and fruits. Like I said, loved fruit growing up, loved a lot of vegetables, broccoli. I absolutely loved growing up. So it wasn't like I was just eating rice all the time, just eating carbs and things like that. But, super picky, but it wasn't highlighted really outside of the family so much. I didn't hang out with a lot of kids, to be honest, and go eat at their place, outside of my own home for the most part. I didn't like pizza growing up. I was allergic to tomatoes, so I couldn't have most pizza. We didn't have white pies back in the 90s in the UK. Okay, it was just like plain, cheese, pepperoni, tomato sauce. It wasn't like rocking your world or anything. But I didn't even like the bread. I thought the bread was disgusting. It was just like a yeasted, pizza bread, pizza dough, and I just thought it was horrible. So there was lots of things that I just was like, absolutely not. I'm never eating that. I mean, fun fact for the Americans listening, the non-Europeans here, but one of my favorite dishes growing up was pasta shells, and it had to be shells. I just love pasta shells because when you put HP sauce on it, the sauce gets caught in the shell and then it like bursts in your mouth. And so I would do a plate of pasta shells, and then in the middle, one of those Sainsbury's steamed steak and kidney puddings. And a steak and kidney pudding, for the Americans listening, it is steak with kidney in it, in like a meat sauce, and the pudding, it's like it's shaped in a certain way, like a little bowl. It's basically a pie, but the pastry is very soft, and it's a steamed pudding, so it's not crispy, the pastry. It's kind of, it's just absolutely delicious. So I'd have my pasta shells, my steak and kidney pudding, and smother it in HP sauce. And That was one of my go-tos. And it's because I've talked about this before. Those 3 things are pre-prepared and taste the same every time. You'll never find an HP sauce bottle where you go, like ketchup, where you'll be like, that tastes different. It tastes weird. It always tastes the same. Steak and kidney pudding out of the tub in the box that you plop in the boiling water from Sainsbury's, Tesco's, wherever. We grew up going to Sainsbury's for the most part. Always tastes the same. Pasta shells always taste the same. So that was one of my go-to meals that I absolutely loved. I had a few others as well. Roast chicken, Yorkie puds. Yeah. Oh man, I miss British food, guys. God, I miss British food. You let me tell you right now, you can't get a frickin' steak and kidney anything in the US. They have these kind of weird mail order places and they're never good. You can get HP if you're willing to pay an arm and a leg for it. You can get mint sauce if you're willing to pay an arm and a leg for it. And all the other, Jaffa cakes, arm and a leg. I mean, I'm telling you, the amount of... I think I spent frickin' $3 or $4 on a can of Heinz baked beans. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, I really miss everything I grew up with, guys, I'm telling you. Not that I haven't fallen in love with American food. Alright, and the third statement you might hear if you were an undiagnosed autistic kid. Why are you failing this class? I know you're smarter than this. I had this thing where I always excelled and got into the gifted program, but once I got into the gifted program, I would kind of struggle with really understanding. It's like intuitively, I had intuitive skill and talent, and I could pick up knowledge pretty quickly, but in terms of having it solidified and actually being educated, was not so much there. I remember specifically being in the gifted program with all these kids in school, all middle-class kids, and all of them were Asian. Indian Asian. In England, Asian is Indian subcontinent. In America, it's like East Asian, Chinese, and Korean, that kind of thing. And it was someone in a cave, a drawing of someone in a cave shouting in the cave. And they said, well, how does the person hear their own voice? And basically what they wanted is you to draw a line from the mouth to the roof of the cave, bouncing to the end of the cave, and then bouncing back into the person's ear. I had no idea what they were talking about, but somehow I had the confidence and the wherewithal to get into this gifted program. All the other kids there with me, and I was maybe 8 when we were doing this, knew what to do. Just quickly drew it and then ran over to the teacher and was like, here, I've done it. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And I remember a couple of times in school, I remember 2 specific times. One when I was 14, one when I was 17. Where I'd always done really well in school. Math and science less so, but in every other subject, geography, history, English, even PE, always did really well. I have a bit of dyscalculia, I think, and struggle with science and math. But I was in an RE class, which is religion, or RS, religious studies. And in that you study all types of religion and philosophy. You study Christianity, Hinduism. We studied law, like through philosophy and things like that. And I got a really low grade on a paper, like really low, and couldn't figure out why. And it wasn't like I felt like I was struggling. It just something didn't click. And that's happened before at work. I've talked about this, where I think I'm rocking it. I think I'm doing fine. And then my boss comes to me and is like, you did terribly. What's happening with you? And I'm like, how did I not know that I was doing badly? Right? And another time when I was 17, same thing. I was doing my English A-levels, English language and literature. And you test out at the end, right, to go to university or college. And it's 2 years long, and the end of the first year, you do an exam, like a prep exam. It's to make sure you can handle it. It's to get you ready for a year from then to do the final exam. And I got a D on the exam. I'd never gotten a D before. In my GCSEs, I got a C in Spanish, because that's another one. Foreign languages are foreign to me. I'm so awful. I got a C in Spanish and a B in math and science. So not bad. I got an A to A star in every other subject. but I got a D in English language and literature, which was crazy also because, like I said, English had always been one of my things. I devoured books. I'm a published writer. I was always good at that and felt like I understood English language and lit. And so that was shocking to me when I received that. I remember not wanting to tell my mom. I don't think I did tell my mom. I can't remember now, because I think she would have screamed at me, to be honest. Probably would have verbally berated me if I had told her. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I did. It all kind of blurs together, that period of my life, to be honest. And that, again, I was just like, how did this happen? Why did I not do well? But then after that, and prior to that, nailed everything else. Every exam, every test, every essay, presentation. So there's these moments where you just kind of don't get it and don't realize you're not getting it. And maybe it's you're stressed at the time, so that takes over. Maybe there's a bit of a disconnect there. You're kind of removed from yourself. You're disassociating. I'm not really sure, but that always frustrated me. But it happens so rarely to me. But when it does, you're just like, oh crap, why didn't I notice that? And it's scary. That's actually what led to my diagnoses of ADHD and autism is during 2020. I came back from being off for 3 months during COVID at work. I was still employed, thank God. They brought me back. They told me I had to do 2 jobs at the same time. I thought I was doing fine. My boss went on vacation. I took over her work. Thought I was rocking it. She comes back from vacation, is like, you effed up everything. Like, these emails are like, why are you saying this in emails? That's not okay. We need to have a chat. And then that scared me. It scared me that I didn't recognize that. And so then I went into therapy because I was like, I'm going to lose my job and I'm scared as to why I couldn't tell that I wasn't doing well. So yeah, I've definitely heard that before. Like, they know you're smart, or even for myself, like, I am smart. Like, what happened? Why did I do that? Where? All right. And the fourth and final one for this episode is I don't get why you're confused. It's really easy. Yes, I think that links into the previous one I just said, right? Except that in this one, you're confused because you're saying, I'm confused. And they're like, I don't get it. Why are you confused? Like, it's easy, duh. And I would say that comes up with like analytical math stuff. I really do believe that I have dyscalculia and maybe a little bit of dyslexia, like very mild. I don't know if dyslexia is a spectrum, but very mild. But I can literally, you can show me a presentation with writing and pictures and video and someone talking, as long as there's subtitles, and presenting something in a way that is explained with examples and comparisons and things of that nature. But if you show me a spreadsheet, if you just show me a spreadsheet and try to explain to me what is happening in this spreadsheet, this formula means this, we're going to do this, that relates to that number in this way, I will lose I don't get it. I'll lose my mind. I just don't get it. It's like my brain, it's not even that it switches off, because I'm looking, I'm like so desperately burning a hole into this screen with my eyes, and my brain is on, but it's like it can't punch through. It cannot get to where I can understand anything. It's very like the stuff is coming in and like hitting my brain and like falling. Like something like hits a wall and falls. It's like not penetrating. It's just like hitting me in the face, being like, listen, get it together. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what this means. So I find that often with things of that nature, things to do with math, analytics. I have kind of a creative analytical mind where I will think up just the craziest things that other people haven't thought of, but I'm not able to kind of analyze numbers and meaning out of numbers. I'll give you an example about the crazy analytical or like the creative mind. And this happens all the time. I remember my brother-in-law's girlfriend at the time was getting into making jewelry. And she said, if you just get me all of the the stuff, she had the equipment, but all of the beads and all of that thing, and tell me what kind of design you want, I'll make it for you. And so I went with my mother-in-law to a beading shop because my mother-in-law was also beading and wanted this girlfriend to do the same thing. And I started picking up these pieces because I was like, I want them to be arranged in a line like this and da-da-da-da. And my mother-in-law looked at me and goes, what? You want to do what with this? And I said, I want them in a line like this so it becomes like this and that and whatever. And she was like, oh, what? Because I'd grabbed like 20 of these things to make a line across my neck for a necklace. And she told me that they were used, generally you would only have 2 for a necklace because they'd be like bookends at the end of your necklace. And I was like, oh, well, I want to use them like this. And she's like, that's fine. I don't think anyone on the history of the planet has ever used them like this, but you do you. So I kind of approach these things of like seeing different ways of working, different ways of doing something, different ways of using something, just by seeing them and engaging with them. So I'm really good at learning a process, doing that process, and then blowing that process up and just saying, this sucks. Like, I'm really good at doing something at work and saying, this doesn't work. Like, it works, it produces what we need, but it takes 10 times longer than it should. It doesn't include a lot of information that we need, and it's really hard to train people on it. This is what we should do. And then I can lay out a whole process that's better, that people prefer, that's easier to train on, right? That produces even better results. But if it was in a spreadsheet where they said, look at these results, right? We get this percentage of that percentage, now let's create something that creates a better percentage. I'm just like lost. I'm like, okay, guys, I can't get there with you. I'm sorry. So I have lots of gifts and talents that other people don't have, that I'm really appreciative of, and appreciated for, because I will bring things to the table that no one else has ever even thought of, hasn't even considered. But if you're just trying to get me to aggregate numbers and make a spreadsheet out of make like a diagram out of some numbers, oh dear. I mean, I can do a pie chart on how many men and women are at work, but if you want something really complicated, like these numbers, what could they mean? I can't even get into it or describe it because I just cannot deal with it. And I had to do it a lot in my master's program and really, really struggled. And my instructor would just say, well, what can you tell from this data? And I'm like, what can I tell from it? Oh, nothing. I can't tell anything from this data. All I can tell is like 44% of women are engaged and 56% of men are engaged, whatever. And it was just so complicated. So, yeah. Definitely get confused on things that other people wouldn't. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight if you're out there undiagnosed until you were an adult with autism. Me too. Join the club. I'm going to finish this little 2-parter off next week with the final 4 statements. And then maybe I'll look for some statements that could be used for an undiagnosed ADHD kid, and we'll do that after. Again, please rate and review this podcast if you're enjoying what you're listening to. If you're not enjoying it, stop listening and don't rate it. And if you have any money at all, anything you can give to my GoFundMe for my dog Leon, who is kicking ass at chemo right now, I so would appreciate that. It's in the show notes. Email me at mybrainiswonderlandpod. And thank you for the fan mail and the emails, man. I am loving this community, and I am loving you guys. I will talk to you again next week on My Brain is a Wonderland, Season 4. Bye-bye.